treatment? Like, there's some sort of, like, informed process to that, right?
Well, treatment is completely driven by assessment. So the decision we'll make as a team is whether you should be reassessed.
Okay.
You know, say you've been assessed, you've been in the program, you hit kind of a snag. Okay, well, let's get you reassessed and see what the assessment says, and we go from there. Because we have treatment professionals on the team, but we are an interdisciplinary team. So we're not making those kind of, like, decisions for you, really. We are making a decision as to whether you're going to be reassessed, whether you've screwed up too many times, maybe you're going to be, face a due process hearing, those kinds of things.
So I'm gonna push the envelope here a little bit, because I've heard feedback from other participants.
Yes.
And I got to be honest, where this information is coming from is probably not from a reliable source.
Okay.
But I've heard instances of, like, somebody getting an assessment done and being recommended for, like, outpatient or something like that, and the treatment team not being in agreement to that, and then getting another assessment by maybe another service provider that would go along with, hey, let's put this guy in inpatient again.
No.
Okay.
That's
I've
true.
I've heard that, and like I said, I didn't think it came from a credible source.
No.
But if I didn't ask these kinds of questions, I wouldn't be doing my job.
Yeah, I'm really glad you're asking that question, because I have, occasionally I'll hear things, and I'll be like, oh, gosh, no, we need to correct that. We don't guide your treatment. We really don't. What we do sometimes, and I'm not always on board with it, honestly, is sometimes say that you can't go back to a particular living situation.
Okay.
Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes as a team, it's like, well, no, we think you need, to be here versus there. We think you're not ready for this versus that. So yes, those kinds of decisions, those do happen on a team level. But anything having to do with treatment is assessment driven. It is driven by treatment providers. It is not determined by the team. And if it's not like we're going to keep going to look for an answer that we want.
Right.
The answer is whatever the answer is.
That goes back to the question that I had in the last episode about the biased rulings on people. And
right.
Oversight.
And I think a lot of those things that we hear come from disgruntled participants.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, something didn't work out to their favor,
right.
So now they're just hyping up the situation more than what it is.
Yeah, they're looking to change the narrative so that it's not their fault. It's not anything.
They're the victim.
Yeah, they're the victim, and we're the bad people. And I get that, but it perpetuates a lot of untruth.
So now your changes that happen to drug court, once the team agrees on a change, is that just kind of set in stone and it happens? Do you guys have someone that you have to submit it to afterwards? Is there someone who presides over the team? That's what I was curious about.
The judge presides over the team.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
It really...
it's Judge Dally.
Yeah, we don't have to go any further than that. What we would have to do, say, if we were going to start a new track, say we were going to do a diversion track or something like that, then we would need buy-in from the district attorney's office, from all the other judges. Then you're talking about something different, a change that would require something more than just team consensus, because you're changing sentencing in Northampton County yet another way. So that involves more than just the team. Whether we're going to be, 4 phases or 5
like
phases.
some of the other counties have, like, other types of diversionary programs, like some have, like, a veterans court, some have a DUI court, some have recovery courts that are geared specifically towards opioid abuse.
Yep.
So
mental health courts.
So like if you're what you're talking about is, like, starting off like a separate entity as, like, a DUI court that
right.
would require authorization through the multiple channels.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a higher level decision that it requires kind of countywide buy-in.
Okay.
If we're going to make changes to our existing program, those are for us to make. Go ahead. I'm sorry, you had a question.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that when we started the problem-solving courts, we started mental health and the recovery court. We were the 100th and 101st programs in the state. There are now 119 programs.
Oh, wow.
67 of which are substance abuse related. And some of those, as you said, are diversionary. Some are DUI courts. Some are juvenile courts. But 67 substance abuse-related courts. 23 mental health-related courts. 25 veterans courts. 2 prostitution courts. one sexual offender court, which I think has to be really.
I didn't even know about that.
I didn't realize that the rehabilitation courts went
that far.
Yeah. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and also one domestic violence court across the state. And it's funny because I think at one point we were closer to 130, but then, so why are we at 119 now? It's only because existing courts have kind of restructured and maybe taken, what was 4 courts in their jurisdiction and turned it into one or something like that. So,
like when you guys dissolved TCAP into drug court.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So my question is too: you're talking about these different levels of county administrations that need to be on board when starting something like this. Did you guys receive like initial pushback before it started, or was it generally easy to get everybody to sign off on this kind of thing?
Judge Daly is able to speak to that better, but as I mentioned, he came on in 2010, January of 2010. He ascended to the bench, and we opened in April of 2015.
So there was a little bit of pushback.
Okay. So, I mean, it takes time to generate.
Right.
Yeah, it takes time to generate some buy-in and kind of figure out how you can do it. I know that Judge Daly, he has a good friend who is now the administrative judge of criminal courts in Lehigh County, which has not had a recovery court or a drug court. And I believe they are now starting one.
Just announced this week.
Yes. I met with him. He came to us last August perhaps, and I sat down with him, the judge and I, and we gave him some information, and we talked about, getting buy-in from your county and how difficult it can be, and the different avenues you can take to establishing a court, whether it's diversionary or it's not. And so those are, there's some politics involved, absolutely. Yeah. And you have, judges in Pennsylvania are elected. They serve 10-year terms, and then they run for retention. So you have people who've been on the bench for a long time, and maybe they're very
old school.
Yeah. I don't think we had a huge problem with that in Northampton County, but I know of other counties that that's been a sticking point for them in terms of getting to a program like this. But for me, as that lawyery, social worky kind of person, it makes so much sense to deal with the problem and try to stem the tide of people just going back to prison, reoffending and it's. I'm so glad to be a part of it because it makes so much sense, and it's good for the community. It's good for people.
I'm glad that it is people like you and Judge Daly and Jenny Duvall and Jordan Scott, people like you that have your hands into other people's lives, and not just some random person who has no heart in the field. Because
just lock them up.
Yeah, like I've seen the way you do, the way your group does things, and I know it's compassionate.
Yeah,
I know you do it from the heart. I know that the decisions that you make aren't easy, and people don't always see that, and it's just
we're invested. We are an invested group, and we've put a lot of energy into a lot of people over the years.
So do you have hopes moving forward?
Well, that we continue. Go ahead. Yeah.
Do you have any ideas, plans for expansion, or like?
We are almost full. We're pretty much kind of at capacity and looking at hiring another probation officer so that we can expand services. So that's pretty exciting.
I recently attended a graduation there, and
you did.
Compared to when me and you were in the program, when we went to graduation, like we would fill up the courtroom maybe
halfway, maybe a little
right
more.
Now, like we were there was about 10 to 12 of us sitting in the jury box because there was nowhere else to sit for this, because that was solely because of participants. There wasn't there was
What's
a couple.
the capacity, like 100?
About 75, because we have 2 probation about 80. A full caseload for a probation officer is 40 people.
Holy shit!
That's a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot. And we currently have 73 active participants. We have 4 inactive who, were admitted into the program and are kind of pending their due process hearings. That's something that I think I've mentioned that maybe once or twice and have to explain that. It's a voluntary program. So you are sentenced into it, but you have to be, it's your choice whether to take that sentence or say, if it's a new charge, go to trial, or if it's just a violation, just
let me sit out my time.
Sit out, exactly.
I can tell you, I've been on both sides. I've done treatment. I've done jail.
Yeah.
I sat 27 consecutive months, and tell you, doing prison time gets easy after the first 6 months. Once you break your cherry and you're there and you get used to it, it's like, whatever, I'm here and I'm just going by another day.
It's just another routine.
Treatment's harder.
That's changing your life.
Right.
I mean, that is
Jail,
real life.
I didn't have to change a fucking thing. I can go in there, free meals, place to sleep.
Right.
Might even learn a thing or two that I could use when I get out.
So your program is pretty much voluntarily, so people can say, "Hey, I don't want to go through that. Just send me to jail."
Yep.
Yeah, and we actually have had I want to say 2 people who have voluntarily left the program. We had
So if you leave, you go to jail. Is that what it is?
We had one person, and it wasn't so long ago, who said, "You know what? I can't do this. I can't do this. I want out." 2 weeks later, hey, knock knock. Can I come back in?
I remember this.
Yeah, and now they're out again.
He took himself back out again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I appreciate that. I really do, because I think, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe he's one of the people who snowed me, but I think he wanted to try. I think he really maybe thought he could, and
he just realized he wasn't ready for it.
Was honest enough to say, I'm not ready for it.
People, I think, they want to do it, but when they get involved with it, it's maybe too overwhelming or a struggle for them, and they're like, just forget it.
For so many reasons. I mean,
it could be a lot
most
of reasons.
them
It could
personal,
be a lot
I'd
more.
say.
Yeah.
Most of them, like, who am I right now?
You really
what am
have to
I
be dedicated.
prepared for?
Yeah.
What can I?
Part of the treatment process is looking inside yourself, and a lot of people get scared to do that. And it's not even. It doesn't even have anything to do with like the obligations and the places you got to be or anything like that. It solely comes down to like looking inside yourself and seeing what ticks. I didn't want to know what made me tick for a long time because I was scared of what that looked like.
Yeah.
I guess I dodged a bullet. I'd never been through any of those programs or never been addicted to drugs.
Right, but even
I've always had a lot of mental health issues.
Yeah.
That was my whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I'd never really seen you more than like maybe smoke a joint.
I smoked weed a lot. Pretty much it.
He definitely didn't go down the route that a few of the other of us went.
A lot of us.
I like my weed.
Now, we talk a lot about the recovery court. Now, the mental health court side.
Yes.
How involved are you in that side?
Just as involved as I am. I have the same role.
Same role.
Same role.
Awesome.
For
and
that
Judge
court.
Daly also does that?
Yes, he does.
All right. See,
Yeah.
I knew that it existed.
Yep.
Didn't know that it was you guys that did it.
It's us.
So for somebody with mental health, what do they got to do to get involved?
So what's that all
Is
about?
that-
Explain a little bit about that.
The mental health court is an opportunity for people whose charges really stem from a mental health event, or just untreated mental health symptoms. It's a diversionary program. Primarily, we do have we do allow people into the program if they have a violation, but primarily it's people who, instead of going to trial or pleading out or whatever on their charges, they go into this program, and if they successfully complete the program, the charges go away.
So it's like an ARD.
It is like an ARD.
Once again, Tony, why did we not know this and do this?
Well, I unfortunately used my ARD Joker card for an underage drinking.
Yeah.
You had other needs that were better served by a different program.
Listen, I like this because this is one of the things we've talked about before is the way mental health is treated in the prison system.
Yeah.
And or the lack of being treated in a prison system.
Right.
I'm all for them getting the treatment they need versus just being tossed in a cell and being dealt with by people who are underqualified and undertrained. Because let's face it, most of the corrections officers I've ever met are not very sensitive to trauma and mental health.
Nope.
They're, you didn't do what I said, so now I'm going to beat your ass.
Right. It's
it creates
compliance.
an even bigger issue.
Right. It's a compliance system, and people who are dealing with active mental health issues are